War Eagle, War Report family, and Merry Christmas to all. I am your host, C Dub. We recap a very special week for Auburn football. We'll talk about some latest signees, some guys who committed to us out of the transfer portal, and we discuss Auburn's coaching staff on this special edition of the Weekend Tailgate.
You are now listening to a War Report Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by
Athletic Architect.
It's your boy, Ike Jones. Be Will. C-Dog. Mike G. Get ready. Sit on back as we bring you the War Report Weekend Tailgate.
War Eagle and Merry Christmas to all. I'm joined by Ike Jones. This guy down here is Mike G, making another, don't call it a comeback, but he's back. And this is the Weekend Tailgate brought to you by our show sponsor, Athletic Architects. Guys, please be sure to visit buildthehouse.com so you can begin planning your financial future, especially if you are a student athlete. We want to show much love and appreciation to Athletic Architects for being a sponsor of the Weekend Tailgate and for partnering with the War Report. We thank you guys for partnering with us, hanging out with us on this special Christmas day, or if you're watching it thereafter, that's all fine and well. Whatever you're doing, please be sure to share this video, social media, Facebook, Twitter, share this content so people can find it. Also, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new to our channel. You also need to become a member because there are tons of benefits, amazing benefits. I can tell you all about those benefits. Ike.
Yeah, absolutely. You can become a member of the War Report. If you want to get down with the film reviews, you got to be a member, patron level to be specific. If you want to be able to comment on those morning drops, you got to be a member. And if you want to be a part of like special lives that we're going to be doing coming up, you got to be a member. Make sure you lock in with us, and we appreciate everybody who's doing that. You can right now because we're premiering this video from the live chat. Gift a membership to somebody. It's Christmas. Why not give a gift of happiness to someone? Because that's essentially what you do when you give a gift to the War Report membership. Go ahead and do that, and we appreciate that very much. Now, we can't give away anything on this live stream, but if we were giving away stuff, then you could get some merch. But just go ahead and go over to the merch store and copy a little something. Get you something warm. You know, we got some hoodies and jackets and things of that nature. Some stuff to put on, some headgear, all of that kind of thing, man. And we appreciate all of that support.
For sure. Mike, welcome back, sir. How are you?
Not bad. Home for Christmas. So I made it home for Christmas. I want to definitely thank the good people at St. Francis for all their efforts to get me back to fighting strength. So I'm here. I'm ready to talk some football, man. So much happened in the last 2 weeks. I was unable to comment. If you saw me on Twitter, I was trying to keep up. But yeah, I'm ready to jump in. Let's do it.
Well, we talked about this. You get an opportunity to weigh in. Ike and I spoke heavily about this during the midweek report, but according to Rivals, Auburn finished 16th, 7th in the SEC, middle of the pack. But considering where they came from, an amazing close to signing day. We have guys like Zach Etheridge to thank for an amazing haul there. We'll talk about some guys who have transferred to us who were in the portal recently, but thoughts about this class, Mike G, and just what we witnessed over the past 2 or 3 weeks to even get us here.
Well, you know, I had tweeted out that, Hugh Freeze is getting a lot of credit for this class, but the truth is it wasn't just him. It was a lot of other guys that one you just mentioned, the aforementioned Zach Etheridge, and Caddy and those guys who went out and really busted tail on the recruiting trail to get guys in the door and to flip guys from other schools. I mean, we had some major flips from some from schools who are in the playoffs. Yeah. Right, in the college football playoffs. So that effort can't be overlooked. And Hugh Freeze can't be everywhere, but I think that his presence provides a renewed focus and emphasis on recruiting. And recruiting is the lifeblood of college football, and particularly in the SEC. Everybody's out there getting it, and NIL money is now flying everywhere, and it's the wild, wild west out here. So I think they did a really good job. He only had a few weeks to put it together. Now, I'll tell you what, Brian Harsin put together like the 21st ranked class or something like that in his first year. It's really difficult. It's difficult when you come in and you have a truncated timetable to try to put together established relationships. So the guys who existed were instrumental in making sure this class happened because they owned a lot of those relationships.
Yeah.
They didn't just start when Hugh Freeze got hired. Right? And then Hugh Freeze put a little sauce on it for some of these guys, maybe to help them close on guys that they wanted. And, it's more important that you fill needs at this point if you're Hugh Freeze than you worry about star rankings or whatever, right? Fill your needs. What was the needs? Linemen. We need a lineman. They went out and they got linemen.
Right.
And so you continue to fill those needs and it all comes together. And if you're good at developing talent, then hopefully some of these 3 stars are really 4 or 5 stars. And, Auburn surprises a lot of people next year.
Yeah. And can we just stop and give some kudos to Christian Robinson, though? Like, listen, he
for sure.
A lot of flack for, a lot of things, but he still worked his butt off to the moment they told him he didn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
That's not something that a lot of people would do, right? To be in a position where you don't have the security of your job, but as long as I'm in this seat, I'm going to keep working. So props to C-Rob for continuing to work, and he helped preserve some of those relationships with some of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, him being let go right before early signing day might have changed some of those relationships a little bit. But it wasn't because C-Rob wasn't out there in earnest doing his job. So props to him for continuing to work while he was in the seat.
Yeah.
I mean, and I thought it was pretty, his parting words for the Auburn family were heartfelt as well. A pretty classy way to exit out. So again, I echo that, Ike, with kudos to him. Ike, you talked about, let's talk about, fans are excited.
Mm-hmm.
They are excited.
I am excited. And I told you, I said this, Mike G. I have been kind of lying to myself over the past couple of years because we talked about development, which is still an important key, but you need some Jimmys and Joes. And so see this staff generate a lot of momentum as it pertains to recruiting and just bringing guys back to even check out Auburn. Guys who've been to Auburn know what Auburn's about, but for them to come back and check out Auburn under other circumstances when we know it was a foregone conclusion they were going somewhere else was amazing to me.
Right. Well, this is where the development piece comes in, Caesar. Again, you can get the Jimmys and Joes, but you can completely mismanage them. Right.
For sure.
Gus taught us that.
Right.
So, we'll wait to see what kind of development plan he has in place. But, if we're basing it on, recency bias, there's room for a lot of optimism. Right. Based on what he accomplished with Malik Willis and, turning Liberty's program around and, what he previously did in the SEC. Now, I mean, I think a lot of his accomplishments in the SEC were a little overblown. I mean, you beat Bama twice, but ultimately there were not a lot of big wins beyond that. Right. He got him into conversation. He pulled in a #1 recruiting class, I think, even during his tenure at Ole Miss. But this is going to be something different, I think. And I don't think it's fair to maybe hang those results on him completely because he's going to have a completely different staff. He's not going to be at a poverty program. He's got a $90 million, performance center behind him, and he's got a ton of support from alumni and staff alike. So this could be different. A different environment might breed different results for Hugh Freeze, better results. Because his results before weren't bad. I don't want anybody to hear that I'm saying his results were bad. But you can get the guys. You got to know what to do with them. I'm super excited about, some of the recruits we got. Rivaldo. Fairweather. Yeah. Like, listen, I'm sitting here on a Sunday in the ICU bed watching Evan Ingram tear it up. And I was like, man, that guy played for Hugh Freeze. Yeah. And if we could produce another Evan Ingram, it would be insane. So I think that they have that potential. You know, getting that kid was huge for this class, and might be one of the most underrated pickups that they have. So you know, we'll see how it goes. All eyes are going to be on development after this, right? Like all the happiness from National Signing Day, it's your class is done, right? So you know, unless you're going and get up, I think correct me if I'm wrong. Between signing guys from high school and JUCO and the portal, Auburn has like 40 spots they can fill.
Yeah, I don't know how many, but I think
it's a lot.
It's close to 40 though.
Yeah,
it's a lot of spots. There's a lot of spots they can fill. So we'll see what he does in the portal over the next few months. I believe there is a February deadline if you're transferring within conference from the portal. So if you're in the SEC, there is a truncated timetable where you have to make a decision if you want to play next year.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, we'll see how he does with that. If they could go out and get some more. And I think On3 is maybe the only service that is re-ranking classes based on portal commits. You know, so, you know, maybe, you know, we take a look at what that looks like, you know, when it's done. But there's still damage left to be done here on what is still the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
But fans are going to be over that real quick. I'll tell you what, because all eyes turn to spring ball, and they're going to want to see an improved Robbie Ashford. They're going to want to see a competent offense. They're going to want to see a better O-line, and they're going to want to see a star in Jarquez Hunter because he's the heir apparent.
I think they want to see us be able to throw a forward pass with regularity.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's something they really want to see, obviously. So especially with Hugh Freeze as your coach and Philip Montgomery as your OC and QB's coach.
Absolutely. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to look forward to, and all this hope will turn to consternation if, you know, spring doesn't look great. So, you know, there's still work to be done here. And
I think that's a good point, Mike G. Like, what should the expectations be for spring ball? Again, we haven't had National Signing Day. Right. We haven't fully turned the page in terms of the transfer portal because we still got a few guys out there. I believe Dylan Johnson. I believe I'm saying it right. Running back, he's yet to decide. There's a few guys still out in the portal who's visited Auburn, and we're waiting to hear back from them. Right. Once we've finalized who we're going to get going into spring ball, what should be the expectation? What are some things, Mike G, you've kind of already outlined what you think the fans should see. What are you looking for in spring ball? What should we be seeing in terms of improvement with this team?
System, right? I felt like last year, for the most part, the players were being held back by the system. The system, and I think Caddy proved it. You know, the run game was not as anemic as we thought it was. Right. It was the way that they were running it, and it made the linemen look worse than they were. You know, it made guys like Tank and Jarquez not look as good as they could have looked. You know, and they went out there and they, you know, once you tweak the system, they went out there and they put the most rushing yards on Bama in Saban's whole tenure at Alabama. You know, and they brought hope back to the fan base. So I'll be looking to see what Hugh Freeze's system looks like. He made a statement that the guy he brought in at offensive coordinator is going to be calling plays. He said, I brought him here to use them. And I'm like, okay, because I asked that question during the press conference, and he responded and said, you know, I've called plays my whole career, but there's some guys out there who, you know, have some methodologies that might help us, and mine might help. And so, you know, they're going to have to get things going in the throw zone, guys, this season. I think fans are going to be looking, once Auburn gets inside the 20, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Because we got about 10 years, we're coming up on 10 years of red zone futility.
So are you renaming the red zone the fro zone?
Yeah, I think we're taking a straw poll on it on Twitter. But it's the whole freeze thing. People are calling it the freeze warning. I don't know if I like the freeze warning. Well, we got to figure out something for this. It's too clever to not do something with it. But you know, again, coming back to the point, improving inside the 20 is going to be super important for this staff. And then having a guy like Robbie Ashford who can create mismatches in the red zone, because you got to play 11 on 11 with him because of his legs, is going to be super important. Now, I know Auburn is trying to go out and get another quarterback.
We'll talk about that.
Right. But a lot of eyes are going to be on him as well, too, because he flashed a little
Star
bit.
potential.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he showed us what could be there. And we now know that he played with a sprained AC joint in his throwing shoulder. But that pass that he made to Javarius Johnson in the Iron Bowl was as good as you'll see. And if Robbie Ashford can go out and do that consistently, I think the sky's the limit for Hugh Freeze in Auburn.
Talk to me, man. You know, what is your expectation? I know there's a lot of excitement coming off of signing day or the early signing period. But what is your expectation? What are some things you're looking to see going into spring ball? Still a lot to be determined in terms of who comes on board with this team, but what are some ideas and thoughts you're formulating for spring ball?
Yeah, I mean, spring ball is difficult, right? Because it's an inter squad practice, and you're going to see they're not going to be like hitting for real. The quarterback's not going to be live. So when you have a Robbie Ashford type of quarterback, you don't get the full potential of what he poses as a threat to a defense. So you don't get the opportunity to see him go out there and run for 80 yards because he broke free of, some pressure. But what I would like to see is, because he's not live, him be more accurate, right? Him being able to throw the ball, which, I mean, let's be clear. When he was in spring ball last year, he had some accuracy that he was displaying then, right? So he showed the rudiments of him being able to do that with a healthy shoulder. I think people forgot that because they didn't get an opportunity to see it much in games before Missouri when he actually got hurt. People forget in Penn State, I didn't forget because I actually have cut up some of this film, and it's going to be going out there on the internet. Yes, it's going to feel like Robbie Ashford propaganda. I'm sorry. There's not a lot of guys that are left on our team that will have offensive highlights. So yes, I'm going to put together a package that shows you Robbie Ashford making great throws in the games in which he played. I'm going to show you some stuff of Jarquez Hunter, because, and people, but watch this. I'm going to put out 2 videos, one for Robbie Ashford showing him doing great things, and one for Jarquez Hunter of him doing great things. One of them is going to be labeled as propaganda, trying to push a narrative, and the other one is going to be a great player doing great things. Doesn't matter. Like, people just want to formulate whatever they want to. Anyway, back to your question. Spring ball, I want to see Robbie Ashford being able to operate from the pocket, make quick decisions, getting the ball out to some people in space, and seeing guys in space do something impressive once they get the ball in their hands. I've commented on this that I think we have some excellent skill players at wide receiver and running back. What I haven't seen is Tank flashes it, when he gets into open spaces. Jarquez, from his just toughness, flashes it. But from the wide receivers position and the tight end position specifically, I haven't seen guys that when you put the ball in their hands in space, they make guys look silly. Right? I've seen speed. I've seen good hands. I've seen decent route running. I've seen all those things. Jay Fair, on the one screen pass that he caught, you saw that, right? We go back a couple of years, Kobe Hudson, every now and then you would see that from him. I want to see guys who yards after the catch become normative things for them, because the quarterback's delivering the ball in a place where they can go and do that. And then when they get the ball in their hands, they're making some guys look silly. And I know that's a double-edged sword because you're making your own guys look silly in the spring game. I just want to see explosiveness and some dynamic abilities from the offense. And then let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. I do want to see, if somebody makes you look silly in the open field in the spring game, that's fine, as long as it wasn't they made you look silly because you were out of position, right? I want to see guys understanding the system, be assignment sound, and if a guy makes a play on you, fine. But I don't want it to just be a bunch of coverage busts where people are running wide open type of stuff. So
yeah, I second that. I like defense. I like when we have a good defensive identity. Ron Roberts focuses on stopping the run. I don't want to see Jarquez. I mean, then also too, I don't know if it's going to be ones on ones, one on twos.
Is it our offensive line doing well, or is it our defensive line playing? Like, you just don't know in the spring game.
Are we going best on best, or is it first team versus second team? So that I'll temper
ones
that.
Versus ones, baby. Let's see it.
I want to see us. I want to see a little bit of an imprint of identity. I want to see that we are stopping the run fairly well, right? We're not going to see a lot of the exotic, wild stuff in the spring game. I doubt that. But I do want to see us play the run well. And that was something that throughout last season, we didn't particularly do so well. We actually kind of regressed in that area. So I would like to see a hint that, hey, even though they've been scrimmaging, they know these guys are running what they're going to do. I would like to see some competency in the front seven. There's going to be a lot of new faces there, but I at least want to see that. So I'm with you on that. Let's talk about the QB position, because we talked about Robbie Ashford. We have signed one kid, and you got to sign a kid out of high school each and every year, right? We signed one guy, but obviously Hugh Freeze wants to take another QB. Devin Leary, he committed to Kentucky this past week. He came in the week prior on a visit, left without speaking to anyone, committed a few days later to Kentucky. That took him off the board. Of course, the story with I think McCall contacted Auburn, reached out to Auburn, looked like an amazing fit for Auburn, but of course, issues there academically preventing that from being a reality. And I'm not quite sure if the coaching staff is trying to see what they can do. I think they're still looking towards the portal for QBs. A report came out about Oklahoma State's transfer QB Spencer Sanders. He was a 4-year starter there. Talks about him now are surfacing. What do you think about it? And people are saying, we should bring in a guy who can at least provide some leadership. I don't want to see that. I want to see someone who can actually, something I mentioned to you, Ike, help raise Ashford's floor through good competition. I want to see some solid competition, as well as building some depth. Again, we don't know what Holden Garner can do. We've yet to see that, but I want to see another guy in there, because Hugh Freeze learned, as well as anyone, you need depth at that position. He was down to his 4th string QB last season. And I think that's one of the reasons why their season ended the way that it did, because he was out of QBs. So you got to obviously bring in a guy who can not only challenge Robbie Ashford, but if something happens to Ashford, we saw that he is capable of being injured or getting hurt. You want someone who can come in and run the offense. But thoughts on the QB situation going into spring? What do you think this coaching staff does in the transfer portal?
Listen, in the SEC, if you got one quarterback, you're screwed, because injuries are inevitable. And, it's a hard hitting league. We saw it, half the league went to their 2nd string quarterback at some point in critical points of the season. I'm not talking about garbage time. So, either because the guy wasn't playing well or he got hurt, you have to have another QB. In terms of Robbie Ashford, I want to say this. Here's what I know about Robbie Ashford. We have a relationship with him here at the War Report. Nobody's harder on Robbie Ashford than Robbie Ashford. So like being, I personally think the idea of bringing somebody in to compete with him is a little overblown, because he competes with himself daily.
Yeah.
Right. And, he's always trying to raise his floor to be the best QB he can be. And I think that this is a good fit with him and Hugh Freeze in terms of his own personal development. So, now that's not to say that we don't need to bring somebody in. You need to bring somebody in, but Robbie Ashford will determine whether Robbie Ashford is the starting quarterback at Auburn University next year, right? Either through great play or poor play this spring. And, we kind of mentioned about what we want to see in the spring, is all eyes are going to be on his development.
For sure.
Like, they're going to be looking at them short to intermediate passes. And if it has not improved, it opens the door for this guy that we're talking about coming in to take the job. And if you're Robbie, you just can't let that happen.
Right.
You can't, hey, thanks for transferring. I got 4 years of eligibility left, and you have a seat over here on the bench. That's got to be his attitude about this. So I fully expect him to play at a high level. But if you're Hugh Freeze, again, you just got to have a backup plan. There's nothing wrong with having 2 guys who can do the job in different ways. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. So you go out and you take a look. I know, some things fell through the floor with Leary and McCall, but there are other guys out there. who could possibly do the job. And this is the advantage of the portal, is that now you can go shopping, right?
Yeah. It's bowl season too. So wait for this other wave of players to enter the portal after playing their bowl game.
Right.
And so Hugh Freeze said as much during his presser about once we come back off the holidays, we're going to get back to it, evaluating guys who have entered the portal. They're looking to bring a guy in. So even though Spencer Sanders' name has popped up, I'm pretty sure there are going to be other guys who enter their board as well, just because of guys entering after playing the bowl game. So I'm excited to see how this shakes out. Talking about skill position guys, Ra Thomas, he visited twice.
Bum.
Tell us how you really feel about it, Mike.
He's a bum. No. He made the best decision he felt like he could make for him. I just want him to know it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
But listen, you feel great about our incumbent starting QB. I feel really good about our wide receiver room. I just don't think they had the opportunity to really show what they could do.
Camden Brown, Jay Fair, baby. Like, listen, we got stars in there, and
man,
it's going to be, they're completely underrated because the pass game didn't provide them a bunch of opportunities last year.
Yeah, man. Between the two guys you just mentioned, Amari Kelly, Coy Moore, Malcolm Johnson Jr., Landon King, man, bro, like, we've got receivers that can go out there and get busy. This freshman that they got coming in, DeQuavius Story, boy looks nasty on tape, man.
Yeah.
He looks absolutely nasty on tape. I'm just like, yo, we got receivers, family. Like,
not to mention tight ends.
Yeah.
Tight end, Landon King withdrew from the portal.
Yeah.
Like Fairweather?
Fairweather. Like, man, I don't know. This could look.
And we still need some depth pieces. Don't get me wrong. Like, once you get past those 8 guys that I mentioned, as if 8 guys isn't a good number of people, you still need some more people in case there's injuries and all this kind of thing. I am 100. And again, I am of the, I know Mike G said that about quarterbacks, overblown competition. I am always going to be favoring bringing in people to compete. So if you can go and you can get a guy who you feel like could start for you, if he competes properly, then you absolutely go and do that. But I want to see it happen. But I'm not as down on it as some people are if we don't land a receiver, because I feel like the wide receiver room looks good. I think it looks good the way it is right now. If we don't get any more people and we just have the freshmen that we're eventually going to sign in the later signing day, and we have the guys that came in right now, I think we've got a good room. But again, I'm never mad at them upgrading or going and finding another JUCO kid or going and find another transfer that they feel like can go and can contribute, because nobody ever said, man, we got too many weapons.
Right. Well, this goes back to system, like I was talking about earlier, right? We had a system that didn't showcase their talents at all. It was difficult. I mean, even
especially for those receivers, man.
God, man. There were just not a lot of opportunities, afforded to them to show what they could do. And I think Hugh Freeze is going to fix that. So, because we've seen what his offenses look like. They pass the ball.
Yeah.
So, Robbie's got to get better, and his maturation process will pay dividends for, Auburn's wide receiver room.
And again, we talked about Holden Garner, and, people I think are discounting him a little bit too much in his ability to mature and push for that starting spot, right? For I know starting experience and leadership, I think, is absolutely necessary. But who's to say Holden can't be a leader in that room? It's not like he's new to it. He knows all the guys in that room. He's a smart kid who can adapt to the system. He can absolutely spin it. If we have to roll into the next season with those 2 guys as our options, I still think that we've got a good quarterback room. I felt good about our quarterback room last year, right? I still feel good about our quarterback room going into next season. But again, you still got to have additional guys, because if you end up going past the 2 deep, we don't have anybody. Like, who's the 3rd quarterback on the roster?
Right. Screwed.
For sure.
Yeah.
We'll pick back up and discuss offensive line, our thoughts about that going into spring ball, as well as the second signing day or national signing day. How many more do we sign? How many more do we need? We'll definitely pick that back up. But guys, please be sure to share this content, smash that like button, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Let's pay some bills and acknowledge the sponsors.
This edition of the War Report is made possible by our generous sponsors. AuburnSports.com. For news and notes on all things Auburn Sports, head over to AuburnSports.com. Athletic Architects. For young athletes looking to secure their financial futures, let Athletic Architects help you start to build your financial house. Head over to BuildTheHouse.com. And our giveaway sponsor, GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. If you want the best in the business at restaurant logistics, check out our friends at GWT2Energy.com.
Always big thanks to the sponsors of the War Report. Thank you to those of you who have become members and those who are thinking about it. I've seen some comments recently of people who are saying they've been hovering over the button trying to decide if they were going to click join, and they've made that decision recently. I want you guys to join the ranks of the people who are doing that as well, and we appreciate you guys. Go ahead and launch into that. Patron memberships, you see the stuff here on the screen. You can read. I don't need to read it to you, but you need to go ahead and make that decision. It is Christmas Day if you are listening to this as it's premiering live. And that means gift giving season, which means you need to go ahead and gift somebody a membership to the War Report. Will only cost you like $6 to do that, right? It's a very worthwhile gift. Somebody gets a free month of War Report membership on you. If you're a type of person who wants to roll around listening to your content, the Auburn Express powered by the War Report is what you want to tune into on your podcast subscription services. You can go ahead and do that. Audio only content is there, as well as rebroadcast of some of this content that we have going up on YouTube. And we appreciate everybody who's continuing to listen to us, no matter how you are getting your War Report content. We appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, let's pick it back up as we're recording this. Or as we're talking about this, Auburn picked up another transfer out of the portal. Now, it was kind of a mix of emotions today, especially if you were out in Twitter, the Twitterverse. Auburn had a guy, Alabama transfer, who actually came and visited Auburn about a few weeks prior. Amari, I think it's Kite, I believe. Visit went well. We were assumed to have been leading for him. He actually signed with UCF, to which people reacted, what the F was that all about? Gus is recruiting O-linemen.
Right. Right.
What?
Shade.
So, oh yeah, absolutely.
When did that become a thing?
Yeah, he got one. Is this the first one in 5 years?
Right. So that was interesting, but a few hours later, Tulsa transfer Dylan Wade follows Philip Montgomery to Auburn, and this was a guy who was highly recruited, actually. It was between us and I believe USC West. A few other schools were in after him as well, but he joins the fold. He joins JUCO offensive tackle Xavion Miller. Of course, Auburn signed 4 kids out of high school on the early signing day period, which brings our total of incoming linemen to 6. Guys, how do we feel about this? We've got 2 tackles out of the portal or JUCO who can contribute immediately on the offensive line. How are we feeling? Are we feeling better about our offensive line situation? We know the staff isn't done, but give me your thoughts, Mike G.
Well, we learned over the back half of last season, the line was not as bad as they were made out to be because of the system. Now, Hugh Freeze has gone out and done the unthinkable. He started recruiting linemen and at a high rate. And because it was such a big area of need, fans got excited and were like, listen, we can recruit linemen to Auburn. Who knew? Who knew that was the thing? So having a regular recruiting class with a decent amount of linemen is going to be important kind of moving forward. So if On to Victory or any of these collectives, you know, like, man, listen, your line in the absence of Heisman type skill positions, your line will make or break your team. So, you know, you either need Bryce Young type talent running around covering your line's faults. And even for him, the weight of that was too heavy. 2 seasons straight, right?
Right.
Or you need to just put some guys out there who can protect the quarterback and give the running backs the holes that they need and create opportunities for the skill positions to do their job. So this is probably about the most exciting part of this recruiting cycle, is seeing Hugh Freeze and company go out and get linemen, that we can develop and use, and a decent amount out of high school as well too. Mix in some JUCOs there who can come in and maybe have an impact, maybe a little bit more physically ready for the SEC. And again, develop those guys and get them out there to do the job. If we can't recruit linemen, this is going to be This is going to be Gus all over again.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, if we cannot recruit linemen, what we're going to have is an amazing win here and there, and some 8-win seasons under Hugh Freeze. And we're going to hit that ceiling. And 3 years from now, we're going to be like, okay, do we need another guy? So I was excited to see that they're starting to change the narrative around recruiting linemen to Auburn, because it's been a sad tale for a long time about our inability, our ability to land a top 10 class, but somehow be completely devoid of linemen in that class.
Right.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I don't know about you, Mike, but I long for an 8-4 season. We haven't had that in a while, so y'all may be mad, but I may be okay for about a good 2-3 years. But I'm just saying, Ike.
Solid season. It's
a solid year. It's a solid year. More shade. So Dylan Wade is familiar with Philip Montgomery, Ike.
For sure.
So talk about the importance of this pickup, because you're not only are you're bringing in a much needed person who can help you up front, but he understands Philip Montgomery and the type of offense, his play calling, all of that. How valuable do you think that is?
It's important. I'd be more impressed if he was the center, right? Because he would be the guy calling the stuff on the line. But but we need tackles. Like to Mike G's point, we had all these, we were signing linemen, but they were a bunch of guards, right? Offensive tackle was definitely not a position that I think people thought existed in the transfer portal or in signing days. At least not. Maybe like they felt like Saban outlawed Auburn from being able to recruit offensive tackles for a while, because every time Auburn does something well, Saban has to make a rule against it. So I think maybe that's what people thought was happening, is that he went and complained to the NCAA and it's like, they're signing tackles. You're not supposed to have tackles in Auburn or whatever. I don't know. I can't do a Saban impersonation. So
that's not how he sounds like.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that. But I just tried to sound like a frustrated small person. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see that. It's actually the opposite of how I thought from the number standpoint. Like, I thought we were going to try to get 5 or 6 transfers and then the rest of it be filled out with freshmen in signing day. And he's gone heavier thus far towards signing freshmen into the class. And so hopefully, as some of these other, there's still a ton of guys, and good Lord, the transfer portal has so many people. I don't even know how you evaluate that number of people. And the problem is, a lot of these guys, they don't really have any college tape, right? So you're pretty much evaluating their high school tape and trying to determine, have you done anything for the last year, 2 years of your life that validates your ability to play at the collegiate level. And so there's a lot of talent that's out there. And it's definitely a tough task for this staff to figure out what of those guys are not just going to be camp bodies, right? They're not just going to be people who are on the scout team to make sure we have people to practice against, but can actually contribute, because we need contributors. Unlike what I've just said about the wide receiver room, unlike what I've said about the quarterback room, of like my confidence in guys that we have in that room that can go and contribute, I don't actually know what we have in our offensive line, because I haven't seen the vast majority of these guys take a single snap on the field, right? Tate Johnson, the only snaps we saw from him was at center, and that wasn't particularly impressive. We had Cam Stutz, who played a little bit, and he looked okay until he got hurt. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't great, and to Mike G's point, I don't know how great any of these guys were until they started running over everybody the last 4 games of the season. But outside of that and Jeremiah Wright, none of these other guys have taken very many meaningful snaps in their career at Auburn. So I don't know what they actually can do. You know, I think it's interesting, kind of on a slight tangent, how excited we get about signing day and all the talent that we bring in. And then we immediately tell those guys, because they didn't crack the 2 deep, that they must be terrible. And it's like, so you don't think that any of these guys have done any sort of development in whatever time that they've been here at all, and they could possibly now in their sophomore, redshirt, freshman, junior year step onto the field and be decent, because again, to Mike G's point, we saw the offensive line play better down the stretch. Maybe some of those guys are actually better than what you assume. You just haven't seen them hit the field yet. So I think sometimes we throw people away because we haven't seen them, assuming they must be terrible if they couldn't crack the field above that guy. It's like Jeremiah Wright looked amazing. He did not start the year on the line.
Yeah,
Brandon Council was clearly the best center we had on our team, was not playing center. So sometimes it's mismanagement of talent. It's not talent issues.
And by the way, that does not need to happen with this staff.
No, we can't have that again.
Yeah, you can't. I can't. That can't happen.
I'd rather it be a situation where a guy is a revelation because we realized it was seriously a 1A, 1B type of thing. It's like the guy who's playing is good. He got hurt or he was ineligible for whatever reason. The guy next to him comes in and he's amazing too. That's what I would love to see happen. I don't want to see a guy struggle out the gate and then they replace him. And they're like, well, how did he beat this dude out? He's much better.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. Sometimes coaches pick the wrong guy. Like
it happens all of the time, bro.
Yeah. Sometimes the guy on the bench is better than the guy in the game.
All over the country. Auburn is not immune to this, man. And people just have to understand, just because a guy's sitting on the bench doesn't mean he doesn't have talent.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like, I call it, it's like kind of like the Gardner Minshew effect, right? Like, a guy who, did well in college, and he's just there, and then you give him his shot. And when he gets his shot, it turns out he was a little better than maybe people thought he was. And I think that, we've got a lot of those guys on this team. But again, the system has been just squashing their hopes and dreams. And this is going back before Harsin.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I just, we got to change the narrative. I think that's part of what Hugh Freeze is going to do here, or what they want him to do here, is to change the narrative around hope by showing us the development of these guys. So, this guy that's coming in, Dylan Wade, if you're evaluating at a high level, man, and this guy's a contributor, people will start to believe in your ability to evaluate. Yeah. And the players will get the benefit of the doubt rather than the reverse what Ike was talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So, a lot of this falls on the coaches with the perception of what a player can or can't do is. And they've got to be better at that.
Auburn currently has 6 linemen. Ike, I think prior to the signing day period, I think you threw out a number as to 9. How many you felt like. How many?
9. So now
9.
It would be 15. If you add the 6 in with the 9 that I had counted before, there's 15 total, maybe 16. I think there's might be one, like, I don't know if Cam Stutz was in my original number. So maybe 16 total linemen, which it's a decent number, but they're still, like, again, we had 18 on the active roster last year. So there's still 2 or 3 spots that they could fill up with guys.
How many?
If you're going to carry 18,
so we need at least 3 more, as far as you're concerned, to get us in a manageable position. I mean,
and it needs to be the right number. Like, so we need to have the requisite number of tackles, we need to have the requisite number of guards, and we need to have the requisite number of centers, right? Like or guys who can play multiple spots so that you can mix and match if necessary. Sure. And that was the biggest issue with the roster management before, is that we didn't have any tackles on the team. So if a guy got hurt at tackle, now you got to move a guard out there who's not equipped to do it, or the guy who's playing tackle right now really is a guard. So it's like now you're going really to like your 3rd string guard to play like it became crazy.
You're thin everywhere because guys are moving over. Right. Are we surprised at one of the things that we have not seen? And again, I think this is just an effect of the transfer portal. But are we surprised at how many offensive linemen and tackles we've seen in the portal this particular cycle?
I think that NIL has taken on a new.
Yeah,
It's a new. It's more of a beast than it was last year.
Yeah.
And so you're starting to see more guys look for those opportunities, not only to play, but to make some cash as well, too.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it didn't feel like there were a ton of guys in the portal last year, linemen wise. And this year, I just think there are more kids looking for opportunities to enhance and enrich their lives while in school.
Yeah.
So, can't blame anybody for chasing the hustle. I hope that they make the best decision for themselves long term doing that, because listen, there are a bunch of athletes, like 2% of them are going to go pro in college. So it behooves a lot of them to make as much money as they can now.
Right.
Because and get a degree at the same time. So you start life ahead of the game, because you grinded it out while you were in college, and maybe you just weren't good enough to go pro, or somebody, a lot. I mean, how many kids don't go pro just only because somebody failed to recognize their talent?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that explains the influx of linemen that you see in the portal, or just kids in general. I think there are way more kids in the portal now this year than there were this time last year.
Yeah.
So that it has a quantitative effect on how many linemen are actually in the portal as well. The numbers have gone up across the board. And you're going to see that continue to happen. Jimbo is still complaining very vocally about this. Dabo says they've been practicing NIL since before NIL was
God,
NIL. So I just think we need to just consider, right? Like, Auburn needs to be a place where you can provide that financial opportunity the right way. And also provide the development opportunity, the development piece as well. There's no reason you can't do both. You can't, and that's why I feel, and if you're doing that at a high level, those kids will not only choose you because of money, I guess, right? But they're choosing you because Auburn's already a great place to be, right? It's already one of the top football schools in the country. And you're getting the personal development piece as well. So, Pastor Freeze is going to have to preach that sermon to these kids and get them through the door. And I think it's working.
I want to have a petty party. Ike is already.
I'm in favor of this. I don't even know where we're going, but I'm in favor of it. Let's do it.
I've been petty on Twitter for much of last week about this, and will continue to be just whenever I see the opportunity.
Okay.
Mike, let's go. Okay, let's go. Let's talk about it. You guys go. Whoever wants to jump in and talk about this, feel free. It's Christmas. Give the people the gift that keeps on giving, and that's Lane Kiffin's recruitment.
Oh man, we almost hired that guy. I'm not gonna lie, I was in the Lane Kiffin camp, but man, his recruiting efforts is like, he did the absolute least on the recruiting trail. You know how you go into your job on a Monday and you're just like, man, I'm going to do the bare minimum today, right? That was Lane Kiffin's recruiting effort this year, and they claimed they raised a bunch of money for NIL, but I don't know where did it go.
Part of it to keep them.
Yeah, where did it go? This is, man, and then the way they ended the season too, like 4 straight losses.
Lane's bags were packed, bro.
Yeah, how did this fall through for him? Like, how did he flub this? How did he do it? Like, you're back. I know that Cohen said that it was always Hugh Freeze, but that's cap. I think we all know that's cap. He messed this up so bad, and he's getting paid. Now, he got paid at Ole Miss, but man, I can't wait to see where they finish next year. Like, legit Ole Miss could be like the 6th team in the SEC West next year.
The SEC West just got a little bit more difficult.
Well, yeah, he's going to have to hit the portal hard.
So he's the portal king, right?
Yeah, he's going to have to go to the portal, and he's going to have to pluck out a bunch of kids and somehow get them to be able to play together in 6 months. Like I don't know what he's going to do, but man, that class was on life support, and we almost hired him.
Bro, could you imagine? And I tweeted this. Could you listen?
Great tweet.
Recruiting has been one of the biggest complaints that many Auburn fans have had over the past 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, for good reason. Could you imagine if he had done anything like that? The weeping and gnashing of teeth.
The meltdown would have been epic. It would have been so epic because
gracious.
Because if he had signed him, we would have paid him like $10.5 to $11.5 million.
We'd have paid a grip.
Oh man, and he would have brought in the 50th ranked class. Now, I do believe if he had been at Auburn, it wouldn't have been the 50th ranked class.
Agreed.
Because Ike already told us, listen, they're broke and they're ugly, and they're pretending that they're not. Right. So I think now that should ring true. A lot of people hated that message, and look what he did. You flubbed the end of your season. You fumbled the bag on the job that you should have just taken. Sign the contract, bro. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But listen, man. Sexton got him paid. He did, but he also put the pressure on him.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But it also
his seat is gonna be ridiculously high now, bro.
Yeah.
Because you got people who are mad that he was even entertaining the offer, whether it was true or not.
The way he handled the whole situation.
That fan base was ready to turn on him. Well, we don't want him anyway. Go ahead and send him out of here. This type of stuff, right? And then when they got him back, they're like, all right, well, Auburn, you couldn't get your guy. I thought you said you were gonna get him. And then signing day happens, and it's not that they didn't get quality talent on early signing day. They signed
12 guys, but
it's just the number of guys and I had people coming approaching me and saying, "Oh, he quit on his job because he thought he had the Auburn job locked up." I was like, "That's dumb. The work you get transfers, right? Like that's like this. That's basically the whole Coastal Carolina situation with what's the quarterback's name that was trying to come? McCall. Yeah, McCall." And he's being like, well, I'm finna transfer anyway. I'm going to just stop going to class. It's like, bro, the credits transfer. You get to continue to do the work, and that work counts towards your next thing. Like, you don't just stop working being like, well, I'm finna get another job. That's not how it works in this, especially when you're transferring within the same conference. So if he did that, if Lane Kiffin's brilliant idea is, well, I'm finna get the Auburn job anyway, I'm going to stop recruiting, that's not smart.
Right.
If he did that, that is a very unsmart thing for him to do. And I would have hated him to come to Auburn with that mentality of, I wasn't working the last couple of months. I was at Ole Miss, so I really don't have nothing to provide to you when I get here.
Yeah.
On top of his in-game decisions.
Yeah. On top of all the
oh my God.
So if people are trying to give that excuse, then I'm definitely glad he did not come here, because he would have come here without any work to back it up. He would have just had a playbook and bad fourth down calls. That's it. And maybe another stud running back. Maybe we'd have gotten a running back out of the deal.
And see, here's the thing. Here's where I really want to poke at Ole Miss fans, because they're like, oh, he does all of his work in the transfer portal, right? But
you can't build a class.
You can't. That's not. I don't think that's sustainable. That's not sustainable.
Every year. Like that's supposed to be a bridge, right? Like you're supposed to be able to patch things up with the transfer portal. And I get the transfer portal is becoming a bigger thing now, but that's not how you build your program, because now every single year you're resetting your program, because likely the guys you're bringing in the transfer portal, even though I'll give him credit, what he did at Ole Miss last year is he brought guys with multiple years of eligibility. So it was as if he brought in freshmen, right? And so they were able to come in and learn his program. That makes sense if you're going to do that for the first year.
Right.
You can't do that every year. Every year, you're not going to find enough gems in the transfer portal And if you're putting in that much work in the transfer portal, you might as well recruit high school kids.
Put it on the recruiting trail.
You might as well recruit the high school kids. Like, it doesn't make any sense, because half of the guys that you get out of the transfer portal, if they're going to be difference makers, aren't going to have a bunch of eligibility left. If they've got a bunch of eligibility, they likely haven't seen very much play time. So you might as well get a high school kid, unless you're confident in the strength and conditioning program at the school that they're at. Otherwise, you're making the exact same bet on a kid who hasn't played very many snaps. It makes no sense.
A lot of the kids in the transfer portal they're slaw.
Yeah, you just not they're like, it takes a lot of effort. Like I said, and if you're putting the kind of effort it takes to mine through those guys, you might as well go find some high school recruits.
Yeah, I looked at that and I just couldn't help but chuckle, because there was all this talk about this, I think they're building a performance center or something in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think they're just getting kids memberships to Planet Fitness or something.
Oh man, well, that's not going to say a lot for getting your weight up. You can't grunt in there. You can't be too ripped in Planet Fitness. They'll kick you out.
They gotta wear masks.
I was like, yo, bro, I'm telling you.
My bad.
They're in trouble. They're in trouble. You just dump.
Lane is on the clock, man.
$9.5 million. Is that what they raised them up to?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you just put your own coach on the clock.
Yeah.
Right. And he put himself on the clock. He let Sexton put him on the clock. And now you got to win. But you turned in a poor class, which, another year from now, after Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC, you can't do that.
His defense is still bad too.
Oh my God! I'm looking.
Bad.
I was like, man, Auburn dodged the bullet.
Yeah.
In my mind,
we dodged a Russian missile. Actually,
yeah, because my whole thing was I was hanging my hat on Lane at quarterback development.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and his system does put up points, but ultimately it doesn't yield a lot of big wins because of in-game decision making.
Right.
So this was funny, man. I couldn't help but poke fun at Ole Miss fans on my Twitter just a little about this, because I just think it was so funny. They gave us so much crap that Lane decided to stay.
Boy.
And then he turns in like is 50th, is that last in the SEC?
It's last. Vanderbilt out recruited Lane.
Oh man, come on, bro. Like, does it stink in Oxford? Like, does it smell? Does it have a smell? Like, when you get there, does it
smells
smell like cows? Like, I was like, yo,
smells like ineptitude in Oxford is what it
smells like. Portal Hopes is what it smells like.
Do they not have Chick-fil-A in Oxford? Like, do people just not want to go there? I don't understand.
I don't know.
This is a massive PR failure. This is a PR nightmare for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
it's so bad, right? And if you're Hugh Freeze, you're the winner. And here's the deal. Here's maybe the advantage to hiring Freeze over Kiffin is Hugh is hungry.
Yep,
hungry Hugh. He is ready to go to work. He's ready to prove his detractors wrong. He's ready to do the work, and he's proven it. In just a few weeks, he's shown the effort and on the recruiting trail. What more can you ask of this guy right now?
Right.
So, and if you're Lane, you just got paid. You know what it's like, guys? It's like, how like an NBA player gets that big contract.
Mm-hmm.
They ball out on a contract year, and then they start to just suck right after that. He got paid.
They on minutes restriction. They just don't play.
Yeah. He got paid and then just immediately decided to suck the next week. Literally the next week. So I'm pretty happy with how things turned out, all things considered.
Yeah, early returns show that we got the best of that.
Hopefully we won this. We won this.
Hopefully, in the words of Cadillac, we won the war, but we won't lose the battle, or whatever he said wrong. But
Caddy.
Thank you, Caddy, for all that you've done.
Never forget that.
Well, good talk, gentlemen. Ike, tell the folks what they need to be doing, sir.
Need to come on board as a member. Hit that join button right now. Listen, man, I know you already spent all of your money for Christmas, so you know what your budget is right now. You don't have to keep saving money. Go ahead and become a member of the War Report right now. Make it official, and we're going to get into some great film after we get back from this holiday break. If you are a member and you want to give the gift of merriment to someone, that comes in the form of a War Report membership. You can gift memberships. YouTube will just randomly assign it to someone else who is possibly needing a pick-me-up. YouTube, some algorithms sometimes just figure out who needs a pick-me-up, and they'll gift a membership to that person, to the War Report. I think that's how it works, something like that. You can support us in a lot of ways. You can join the War Report, and you can purchase things on our site, right? TheWarReport.com is where you go to get that. We got a lot of merch out there for you to be able to get, and we appreciate everybody who's already doing that. You can listen to us everywhere, the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you have a podcast platform, we are there giving you guys audio versions of awesome, and you can go ahead and start listening to that immediately wherever you listen to those podcasts.
We want to thank you guys for spending time with us. Please be sure to share this content on social media, that is Facebook and Twitter. Please be sure to get our likes up and our engagement up as you're watching along with us, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Did I mention social media? Yeah, we're there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at The War Report. You can also find us, TW Report, on TikTok. Guys, please enjoy your holiday. We wish you a merry, safe Christmas, especially for those of you who are traveling. Please enjoy yourself, time with friends, family, loved ones. We will definitely be back throughout this week with more content as news drops. You know where to find us. And until then, enjoy the rest of your holiday. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.